What's going on, Falcon fan? It's your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Today we're going to talk about minicamp, what we heard from the day two minicamp, 2 days minicamp. I think that was the last day. If you remember last year with Raheem Morris, I think that third day they kind of went to the water park trying to, develop that team chemistry a little bit, trying to, put everything together. So for all intents and purposes, minicamp is over for the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to talk about what we heard from, Raheem Morris the last 2 days, and then the players around the team, and what we going to take away from this time going into this 5 week period, dead period, pretty much. So when these guys get back ready and get ready for training camp. Also, what I want to talk about is something that I kind of mentioned last show that I had, and that was talking about this whole coaching change over and over, and players not being able to develop. So I want to talk about this regime here with Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris, and are these guys on the hot seat? So let's talk about that today. So guys, with that being said, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that notification bell so you know when I drop another video. Please hit the like button so I know you guys out here to talk about. Then please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So we're going to get right into minicamp, and for all intents and purposes, we don't get a lot of videos. This time of the year, it's much more about getting the rookies, the young guys, acclimated to being a pro, how they're going to practice and things like that. The new coaches, um, Jeff Ulbrich, and Zach Robinson going to his second year is doing their installs, making sure that these guys got the system down. So when they get into training camp, they kind of hit the ground running, right? So that's pretty much what you're going to get out this time of the year. One of the main things, the biggest things I think that is really important is try to get out of this time period healthy. And if you get out healthy, that'd be good. We did hear about a couple of players that did not participate in OTAs and minicamp. It was Kyle Pitts. We actually heard about Caleb McGarry on yesterday's press conference from Raheem Morris as well, another guy that they was being cautious with that didn't have out there. So hopefully both of those guys, be back. Other guys, Braylon Trice probably was not out there either. So it's a couple of guys that, we did not see out on the grass in minicamp that hopefully in the 5 weeks, way we get to see those guys and they start ramping up and get back on the field, getting ready for training camp. So that's what this mini camp period is all about. Some of the things that I took from it though, from we talk about what we heard from the coach Raheem Morris. We didn't hear from any other coaches. We heard from Coach Raheem Morris the 2 days. Then we heard from the players. And for Raheem Morris, from his standpoint, what I pretty much mentioned was he wanted to get the rookies acclimated. They want to make sure everybody get away healthy, nobody going overdoing it because it's not that time of the year, for all the physicality and things like that. But you want to see guys from the neck up learn the playbook, get the technique down. So when they get great practice habits, he talked about pairing, veterans with rookies, so they can kind of learn the ropes and things like that. So that is what Raheem Morris is all about, which I think is good. The biggest thing is you want to be able to get the system down, and that's what you do. So when you get to training camp, you're ready to go. So that's what we heard from the coach. The last couple of days, he highlighted a couple players, some leaders that's gonna have to take the place for Grady Jarrett. He pretty much talked about Caden Ellis, Jesse Bates the third, AJ Terrell. They're gonna do it by committee, right? So all those guys come in. We got some veterans come in. Got like Morgan Fox coming in. I think it's gonna be huge. Leonard Floyd as well. Another guy's gonna be huge. A veteran that's in there. So they're gonna lead by committee. And one thing that I like about this team is that I think they all feel like they got something to prove this year. So that's going to be really interesting. From the player side, we heard from of course, we heard from Kirk Cousins. Let's talk about him first. He was at practice, and just like I kind of been saying all off season long, is that I felt like Kirk Cousins was gonna be a professional, and he was without a doubt. That's what you probably expect from a guy like Kirk Cousins to come in, not happy with the situation at all. But he came in, he do his normal routine, give a statement, then take questions. One interesting thing he talked about was getting his body back right. Then he kind of realized during the season that he wasn't 100% back to where he needed to be. Um, he did mention that New Orleans Saints game where we played those guys. He took that big hit, and he thought he could play through those injuries and things like that. Um, at the end of the day, you can believe it or not believe it. It don't even matter anymore. He's a backup quarterback, but I think it's going to be good for Michael Penix to have quarterback room, to bounce things off of because of his 13-year experience in NFL. So, um, like I said, I don't think seeing it being a negative for Michael Penix at all, because I kind of figured Kirk Cousins was going to be the complete professional there. And he knows how to get his money, right? He was not missing mandatory minicamp and get fined and things like that. So I think it's going to be a good quarterback room. And that's what you want to hear from your backup quarterback. Somebody's going to come in and you know help the team win a Super Bowl, and that's what I took from Kirk Cousins. If he meant it, if he meant it or not, I don't know, but that's what he said. So we're gonna take his word for it, and let's see how it transpired. Now, if somebody comes up with a trade proposal during the season, right during training camp or something like that, I still think the Falcons will pull the trigger on that. But at this point in time, he's our backup quarterback, and that's what we're gonna roll with. We also heard from Michael Penix Jr. Um, you can see, he's starting to come into his own, realizing that this is his team now, and that he's already putting things out there about, he's talking about his receiver Drake London, that he won't be underrated after this season, right? It's just that confidence, they keep talking about that athletic confidence that he has and things like that. That's when you're starting to hear from him. Um, so I love what you hear from Michael Penix. One main thing that I like to hear from players, especially during this time of year, is building that chemistry and that camaraderie. Because if you know anything about a team, right, when you like each other, you like going to work with each other. You're willing to put that work in, and don't want to let your brother down. I know every team feels that way, but sometimes there's some teams in some situations where they don't get along, right? They just there. But when you got a genuine like and love for your fellow teammate and things like that, you willing to work harder, right? And you want everybody to be great. So that's what Michael Penix is trying to build right now. They talk about their golf game and things like that, doing stuff off the field to kind of develop that chemistry and things like that. But deep down inside, when it comes to the football field, I believe a guy like Michael Penix Jr. and Drake London feel like they have something to prove, right? So I think, I think it's going to be a good situation. T. Terry says Michael Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins is not going to make it. I'm curious why you say that, right? I'm really curious. Just get some more information why you feel like they're not going to make it. So, but Michael Penix, man, I just think that he has that arrogance about himself, which is what you want in your star players, to have the belief that they're going to be doing great things. One thing for sure when you talk about Michael Penix Jr. is the fact that he has that arm, right? That arm is not going anywhere, and he's able to put that ball where he want to put it at. He knows that, right? He's been doing that all his life. So that's one thing, when you have the athletic arrogance that he has, and the ability to put the ball that, and then the ability to now go into a full off season as the number one guy, get the playbook down, implement some things that you do well, with your OC. I think sky's is going to be the limit for him. So love what I heard from Michael Penix Jr. And I hope that, go, if you have not listened to it, go back and listen to it. He talked about his pops, being hard on him, not giving him anything, learning how to be a pro, even at a young age, right? So, we heard from Jesse Bates. He even mentioned Michael Penix, where, one thing is already good about him is his eyes, right? And we've seen that a lot of times on tape where he's, manipulating the defensive backs, especially the safeties and things like that with his eyes, because guys can't be in one place at one time. But, the ability to know where your receiver going to be, the anticipation, the timing that he's able to deliver the ball. It's such a young, time of being a quarterback in the NFL. You just like you've seen, so it's going to see growth there, and that's what Jesse sees as well. So that's going to be good. Heard from Bijan Robinson, another guy. One of his main things is this year to be a bigger leader, right? Of course, he lead by example because the way he plays and the way he's always ready to go and perform, right? But you want to utilize his voice more this year, which I think is a good thing, right? Because he is going to be one of the leaders on this team. So utilize his voice, helping the young rookies, like Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. to learn how to be a pro. Because you think about it, this 5-week period, a lot of these guys ain't had as much time off, 5 weeks between. So how do they prepare for, an 18-week season? And, so getting some of those tips on some of those veterans, some of those guys that have did it some years, and how to be ready to come back in 5 weeks, be ready to go, right? Because it's not like, when you come back, you ramping up again. It's all full go. It's all full go then, right? It's time to get into training camp and get ready for the season. So, that's why it's kind of weird for me the NFL does this, because you tell guys to go away for 5 weeks and then come back and be ready to go for training camp, and they have like 2 or 3 practice, then they get in the pads, right? They're ready to go. So it's just interesting to see, you know, how these guys spend their off time, right? You got to spend time with your family and things like that, but these guys got to stay in shape, be ready to go. So when you get into training camp, you don't have no injuries and things like that. So T Terry, let's see what you say about Kurt and MPJ. That Kurt has this look. I don't like his situation, but he loves the money. Don't want to be fined. Oh yeah, hey, if that's what you mean, yes, I agree with that 100%. But you know, he has to. It is the reason why I don't think it's going to be an issue when I say be a professional, right? Because you don't want to be a malcontent in a locker room, right? Because that kind of information passed to other teams and things like that, right? You have to be a professional. You have to come in and understand that, and it's not new for Curry. I mean, I know it's been a while, but he was a backup before he came in the NFL as a backup. So he knows, you know, how 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 to conduct himself. Like I said, he could be all his talking stuff could definitely be a lie, right? Could be fuming inside, but he I think he's going to be a professional. He's going to show that on the field, and so far we haven't heard but good things about the situation here. I know it's kind of crazy because we got a $36 million quarterback playing backup, but at the same time, the writing was on the wall last year. He knows that, and honestly, his career is you know, really close. So, his biggest hope this year is to see if a team, knock on wood, somebody goes down and he could actually have an opportunity to start again to try to resurrect his career. Because if not, it might be his last opportunity to start this year. So that's what I think about it. We heard from the young rookies, Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. as well. Both of those guys. Um, man, I just feel like listen to those guys, they're ready to go. Especially James Pierce. You don't want to talk about it. You just want to be by because end of the day, you can talk all you want to, talk all the good talk, but you got to go out and produce on the field. And I feel like those guys are going to have opportunity to do that. So I like we heard from those guys. Hopefully they ready to come back and get hit the ground rolling. So, you know, one of the biggest takeaways from listening to all the rookies, because we heard from Rook and we heard from Brandon Dorlus and other young guys yesterday as well, is they know that they're gonna be dependent on this year to have to get this defense going in the right direction. Last year was a little different. It was a little more veterans, on the rosters and things like that. And those guys wasn't, they probably wanted to. I know Rook said he kind of upset about not playing the first four games, but at the same time, this year it's not going to be like that. And which brings me to my point I wanted to make. That's been going around. Raheem Morris has said it, on numerous occasions that he planned on playing the young guys this year. Well, for one reason, he don't have a choice, right? It could because this is a young team, and we got guys that's young that's going to be put in, high pressure situations to be able to get the job done. So, guys like Root, guys like Brandon Dorlus, right? The four rookies we drafted this year in 2025, all these guys, is expected to go out and have contributions to this team this year. It's just the way it is. So, so what I took from what the coaches had to say, and you listen to the players, is that the youth on this team will have opportunity to show what they got. I mean, just the bottom line. First of all, they have no choice. They're gonna have to be able to do it. But I believe that, coming in, following guys like Jesse, following guys like AJ, pros, I don't like guys like Bijan, right? Even, looking for Michael Penix, just sitting behind Kirk Cousins last year is going to benefit those young guys to go out and produce some good things. T. Terry said, Michael Jr. was seen talking to Arthur Blank. Did you see? Yes, I did. I wonder what they was talking about, man. I really wonder what they were talking about, and if you guys didn't notice either, James Pierce, man, like he put on a little weight. He talked about that today, about gaining a little weight, putting a little muscle on. So that's good. That's good to see. We want to we don't want to put too much muscle on, but he lose that that ability to get off the ball. But you're gonna have to put a little muscle on to go up against some of these tackles, because these are the best players in the world going up against these tackles. Don't play. And sometimes they put their hand on you. You ain't gonna be able to get your hand off of you if you light in the trunk. So that's good. But y'all did see him talking to Arthur Blank, and I wonder what that conversation was all about. But looking, you're looking at guys like Xavier Watt, looking at guys like Billy Bowman, right? But you love the competition as well, because we heard about DeMarco Hamlin, kind of feeling some type of way because he got hurt last year, and he come back and they got him a nickname for him called Bam Bam, right? So, he's going to be in the mix as well in that safety room. They went and got Jordan Fuller. He's going to be in the mix, right? Xavier Watts come in, with the serious mentality, learning, trying to, soak up everything he can from Jesse Bates. So I think, the competition for training camp, and I can't wait to be at training camp. And right before that, we're definitely going to talk about, the camp battles and things like that. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait. Only 5 weeks away. But all these things that we talking about the young guys, man, they're going to play. They're going to play. And like I said, really it's no choice because they got to play, right? It's a young defense. It's a really young defense. They got veterans sprinkled in, which is a good thing, right? You got some veterans sprinkled in, but for the most part, some of your biggest contributors is going to be some of those young guys we're gonna need to be able to produce, man. That's just the bottom line. Just the bottom line. So there you have it, guys. Like I said, mini camp, it's over, right? Now these guys go away for, you know, about a month and a half, about a month and a week, somewhere around there. Come back and get ready for um, training camp. Can't wait. I know you guys can't wait. We can't wait till we see the open practice days. Hopefully they allow us back at Flowery Branch this year. And if they do, I'll be bringing you guys some good insight of what I've seen on the field from our Atlanta Falcons this year. So stand by for that. All right. The next thing I want to talk about, guys, is just this regime right now for the Atlanta Falcons, and it's kind of been mixed, right? Because what I mean by that is Terry Fontenot came in 2021, right? Raheem got here in 2024, so it's it's a 3-gap window here of the general manager and the head coach. But what I've been hearing a lot, right, and what I've been hearing a lot is that if they don't deliver this year, get to the playoffs or something like that, is that it's gonna be a whole new regime here. And honestly, I don't feel like that should be the case. And I'm just gonna explain why I don't feel like that, because I just feel like what we talked about yesterday with Army Ebiketie, right? When I talked about, well, not yesterday, but on Monday, when I talked about Army Ebiketie and the fact that he don't had so many different coaches, right? On the defense side of the ball. And it seems like it takes him, the middle of the season to start to learning the system and start. Because if you watch, I think I forgot who it was brought up that, the stat, like his first 8 games, no production usually, right? In all his years played. But then the last, half of the season, he started to play better. It seems like he's starting to figure out what he needs to do in his system, and then he started to produce, right? And so what I'm saying, let's just start with the quarterback position, right? You got Michael Penix Jr., young quarterback. You got Zach Robinson implement a new system, right? And you bring him in, and he knows the system. He's starting to learn the system, and then next year you bring another offensive coordinator in. I just feel like you're stunning the growth of these young players by keep switching out, the coaching staffs and things like that, right? You understand if you don't produce, it's time to go. But in essence, Raheem Morris only had one opportunity to have his. So this year, in my opinion, would be the first year with the quarterback, a young quarterback, to see what they could do. Right, it's a young team, and I'm not lobbying for any of these guys to stay. I just feel like, they started to have some continuity, right? Because I don't care who the coach was, right? At this point, I just think continuity would be really, really big for this young team. That's what I believe. And they are young, so we may have expectations up here because of the talent of the team, but I think the experience of the team should be taken in consideration as well. So that's why I want to to lean in that way, looking at the experience of the team, likes the talent of the team, because this is a talented team. I think we all do agree with that. But when we look at the experience of the team, because of the youth, they might be a year away, and the fact that this, people saying that this could be make or break for Raheem, right? After just 2 seasons, I don't think it's a fair assessment of how he could be as a head coach. Right now, if he just fall off a cliff, it is what it is. So, we seen coaches get fired after 1 season, so that's not out of the ordinary, especially in NFL. We have seen it before. But what I'm saying is, with a young team like this and an inexperienced team, because they're going to be inexperienced, because it's just a fact, because of the youth that they got on the team, you hope that the coaching staff, right? The coaching staff in itself is what's going to help these guys, bring that talent out, simplifying things. I'm gonna use Dan Quinn buzzword, fast and physical, right? And don't have to think a lot, and get after the on the field, that's what you want to see. Just that simple. That's what you're hoping you see from this young team, right? So, the fact that a lot of people is out here talking about that you just this regime is on the hot seat, and they very well could be. They have to produce. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2017, so the drought. It's been a while, right? Terry Fontenot might be on a shorter leash, maybe because he's going into his fourth season, so that could be the case. But I think for the coaching staff in particular, I feel like you know they need at least one more season after this season to be able to get the best out of this team. That's just my opinion. Um, so when we looking at Raheem Morris, and we're looking at Zach Robinson. We already got a new defense coordinator, so once again, I'm advocating you to learn a new defense, right? Um, but with all the other players as well. But the point I'm making is that you know I don't think after 2 seasons under Raheem Morris that they should go ahead and start over again, because that's in essence what you're going to be doing. You're starting over again with a young quarterback that's got to learn a whole new system, right? They just talked about how explosive this attack style defense could be, right? And after one season, you're gonna move away from it. So you know, I get it. Some people saying that's why Terry Fontenot went for it. Because he might not even be here next year, so he don't care about messing up draft capital and things like that. But at the same time, they could just be aggressive because they want to get to the playoffs and win. And the more talent you bring in, the more opportunity that you have to actually get wins, right? And I believe it's a talented roster. I really do. But the inexperience in this on this roster can't be, can't be overlooked. It just can't be. That's why the coaching staff is important. So it's all on the coaches. I do believe that this year because of the youth of the staff. So that's one of the things that when we start looking at this regime, can you see where it could be an issue where this might be their last year? So T. Terry said, B. John said Michael Penix Jr. is bad at golf. Michael Penix Jr. said he's bad at golf. So yeah, he even said he's still learning. Probably need to get a golf coach. Um, the whole team should get together and go fishing and golfing. Yeah, build that chemistry, man. Build that chemistry. They did something similar last year. Like I said, you guys remember they went to a water park last year. After mini camp, trying to build that bond, that camaraderie, and things like that. T. Terry said Recondo with another video. There you go. There you go. That's right, man. He said Morris might have a breakout season in coaching. Let's hope so, man. Everybody talked about Raheem Morris. He been out of the head. He came in as a 32-year coach, right? On his first coaching job, which is young. He's probably the youngest coach in the NFL at the time, right? Might have been the youngest head coach in NFL history before I think Sean McVay took that over. But looking at Raheem Morris, the growth that he have seen, Super Bowl champion, with the Los Angeles Rams, let's see how much he have grown, right? I know a lot of people was critical of some of the decisions he made last year, but for the most part, I thought he had a pretty good game plan for the most part. I know everybody talk about the Commanders game. You go back to that, messing up your times out and things like that. But it's not like it's on the fly. I think they think these things through, and sometimes they just don't go the way we think they should go. It's just don't. I mean, he explained the no timeout in the Washington game, right? They didn't want to let Dan Quinn put his pass rushers out there, right? He wanted to go quick and get them back on the ball so they can make a play. But 20 seconds came out the clock. So hindsight 2020, I think he probably take the time out next time, right? And no matter what they set up, because it gives you more time to be able to do something with the ball. So let's just talk. Let's just be honest about that. But for this regime, I think Terry Fontenot, you know, his first draft. Now we're looking at that. I think it's like one player on the roster from the first draft, and I think that's Kyle Pitts. So that was bad draft. Let's just be honest about it. Um, he's hit on all his first round picks for the most part, but the other parts of the draft has not been so well. Um, well, especially in the first year, right? You go look at some other seasons, you start to see where maybe got a little bit better, right? Like I said, on all the first round picks so far, I think it's been a hit, right? But then you look at some of the second round picks, you like, maybe Matthew Bergeron might be the one right now that you're looking at, like good pick. Or maybe Katie. We'll see. You saw the progression for Armor Katie year in and year out. You did see that, but second round pick production, I don't know if we've seen that yet. Richard Grant was a no. Um, Troy Anderson can't stay healthy. So, his second round picks has not been, so good as well. But then you go to the later round picks where you finding those football players, the guys that don't have all the traits and the athletic abilities and not projected to be, you know, anything. Those are guys that's been sticking, guys like Tyler Algier, right? Guys you've been getting from undrafted. Guys like the offer, guys like Ryan Newsel, who's just signed a deal as being our starting center. So you can see, you know, the ups and downs of Terry Fontenot regime so far, his personnel moves and things like that. Some been been good, and some have not, right? And I think you can go around the league and you can see hit or misses and things like that. Especially when you talk about draft picks, really you got to wait 3 years anyway to see if your draft picks pan out. So we can look at the 2021 class now and say that was a bad draft class, right? Even Kyle Pitts haven't lived up to the hype, right? So we can say the 2021 draft class was not that good, right? This 2022 class right now, they're going into their third year. We're going to see, what they're going to be about, right? So you just have to take a look, at these guys and kind of take the whole picture of what Terry Fontenot did, and not just the first round, not just the second round. Look at the whole moves, even the free agencies, right? They bring in Jesse Bates, right? Caden Ellis, guys that could be here for a while, right? Especially if they get extensions and things like that. Um, Darnell Mooney was another good signing, right? At the time, Kirk Cousins, right? Now that look bad. So I guess that would be a knock on some of his personnel moves. But um I just feel like this regime should get at least one more year, right? And this me putting my perspective on if the Atlanta Falcons don't do well this year. I'm just putting it out there, and I'm cool with that. I'm an Atlanta Falcon fan. I'm not going anywhere if they don't play well this year. I think they got the potential to play really good, but at the same time, it's a young team, man. So it's a lot of unknowns. We don't know how some of these young guys gonna perform in big moments, right? That first 5 or 6 game schedule, it's not easy. So we definitely get to see what this team is made of to start the season, all right off the bat. So, but in my opinion, I don't think this team is on the hot seat. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I really believe that um, they should get at least one more year. Um, will Zach be able to fully open up the playbook for MPJ? That is the hope. So let's talk about um, the teams, the three teams on the Atlanta Falcons. That's in the offense, defense, special teams, right? Then we'll get out of here for the day. So the first thing is the offense, right? We just talked about Three Dirty just asked about Zach Robinson opened up the playbook for MPJ. right? We heard B. John Day talking about, how athletic Michael Penix Jr., which is true, right? The only concerns there is, his health, right? Because he had been injured, you know, more than once in college, right? More than twice in college. So, those is concerned about his injury concerns. However, when medical docs look at him, so most of the injuries is 4 years removed now when you look at it, right? When he was in college, 2 good years at the University of Washington. He's going his second year in the NFL, so about 4 years removed from all those injuries and things like that. So the, the one piece when you're thinking about offense, when they can't open up, would be the would be you know the ability to move the quarterback, right? I don't think you're gonna see Michael Penix Jr. being a Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, right, or Jaden Daniels, not even a Jalen Hurts, right? We don't want to see Michael Penix being that type of quarterback and having design runs and things like that. However, you want to see Michael Penix use the athletic ability he has, running a 4.4 40, right? You can, so you see the athleticism. So I think when we talk about Zach Robinson, we talk about opening up the offense for Michael Penix Jr. is being able to utilize what the Atlanta Falcons does really well, right? And playing that into the pass game, and that's running the ball, right? The Atlanta Falcons run the ball really well, right? Got two dynamic running backs in the backfield, so you want to utilize those guys to set up everything else for your offense. And if you're able to do that, right, and you can add Michael Vick's, I mean not Michael Vick, Michael Penix legs to that as well, right? Now the running game could be more dynamic, right? And when the running game is more dynamic, it opens up your passing game, right? The biggest knock of Zach Robinson last year probably was the lack of play action pass. We heard about it and nauseum, right? That first game after the Pittsburgh Steelers games where no play action passes at all. It just looked anemic from the Atlanta Falcons. The offense looked it bad, right? A lot of people chalked it up on not being in preseason and things like that. But no, that was Zach Robinson first time calling a regular season game, right? As offensive coordinator. So you saw him get better throughout the season as well, right? So when we talk about the Atlanta Falcons offense, open it up for Michael Penix, the playbook. I think sky's the limit, right? I don't think it's nothing that Michael Penix can't do in a playbook when it comes to quarterback position. Probably except like a Cam Newton quarterback power or something like that. Other than any other play, I think he's capable of doing that, right? Being able to utilize the play action pass, you know, the run fakes and all that good stuff. We think they could be able to utilize that for Michael Penix this year. So offense, I think overall has the potential to be really good. We're not going to rehash that. We talked about that a couple of times. So let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, Jeff Ulbrich coming in. Not a first time defensive coordinator. He has coached a top 5 defense over the last 4 years, right? So he knows what it looked like to be a dominant defense. He knows what it looked like to be a dominant defense, right? The question is, can he instill that dominance into the Atlanta Falcon players? If he can, right, then you start to like what you're going to get to see from the defensive side of the ball, right? We got Nate Ali, who's Mr. Energy himself, and really believe in what he's teaching. What I'm telling you, this is what I'm saying. He really believes what he's teaching, which can bleed into what the defensive front believe as well, right? And if they believe that getting up the field, disrupting everything on the other side of the line of scrimmage, man, you gotta like the ideal of that, right? Even if you haven't seen it yet, even if you don't know if it's gonna work, you have to like the ideal about it, right? So just the belief and the energy that's already been instilled in this defense, I think is going to go a long way, right? Trying to create turnovers, trusting your teammates, right? I'm a cornerback on the back end. I'm gonna take a gamble because I believe one of my guys gonna rush the quarterback and make him throw a bad have a bad throw. That's what so that's what you're gonna believe. I think that's gonna be really interesting to see this defense and how to unfold with all the young guys, but the philosophy that being instilled, you know, with the mixture of the Raheem Morris, Jeff Albrecht defense. I can't wait to see what it looks like. Um, so just can't wait. Okay. B. Jones said Mike Penix Jr. is a good running skills. If MPJ can run a little, it'll open up the holes for him. And oh hell yeah, he did mention that, and that's what I mentioned about the running game, right? Just the fact that Michael Penix bootleg to the right or left, right? I think it'd probably be more, used being left-handed, probably better to bootleg left, but you got to be able to bootleg the opposite way. I digress on that. But anyway, you're right. Being able to take, now the defender has responsibility as a quarterback, right? Because they know he's not going to be stationary right there in the pocket. He'll be able to move the pocket, and when you start to move the pocket, that opens up a lot for everybody. So, you're right. That's going to be really exciting. Right now, we talk about the last team, which is special teams. I think a lot of people kind of, look over special teams, and I'm just going to say it right now. The most disappointing part about Atlanta Falcons, one of the most important disappointing parts about Atlanta Falcons in 2024 was the 12 missed field goals, right? And so that has to be rectified. We can't miss 12 field goals. I think we lost a couple of games because of that. You give us those games, we 10-7, right? Just that simple. We hit one field goal in New Orleans, and we probably win that game. We hit the field goal in Washington. We win the game, and we still got the lead going into week 18, right? So, you know, the midfield goals hurt us bad. It really did, right? So we got to be able to fix that. Um, and that's, of course, it's just one part about special teams. Of course, the return game, they went and got Jamal Agnew, a guy that real familiar with Marquise Williams, right? And one of the best return men in the game. So we're trying to better our return game. We're going to see if it's going to pan out for us this year. That dynamic kickoff, it wasn't as hyped as people tried to make it to be, because we didn't get a whole bunch of, explosive returns and things like that. So it's really going to be interesting to see, how, the second year with that, how it's going to look. So I can't wait to see that as well. And then our kickoff and coverage teams and things like that has to be able to do what they did last year. Our special team was huge. That's why Cardell Hodge went to the Pro Bowl, because he played a vital role in how our special teams, played this year. So that's going to be huge as well. So, looking at the three teams, the offense, defense, and special teams, um, putting it all together, I think it's going to be what's going to take for Atlanta Falcons to finally do away with that playoff drop that they have. 100%. So, guys, there you have it. Let's see what T. Terry says here. Cool. The players love him. He's going to be there. Hope so. Before last season, he was one of the most accurate kickers in NFL history. So we'll see. Maybe he was injured. And thinking about that, Raheem Morris says he's going to, not linger on things like that. Cool was something that he probably should have figured out earlier. Kirk Cousins is probably something he should have figured out earlier. So learning from your mistakes from season to season could definitely help Raheem Morris. So that's gonna be huge. But you're right, cool. They love him. They did bring in Lenny Craig for some competition. I don't know if he can beat out though, so we'll just have to see. Uh, all right, there you have it, guys. The Atlanta Falcons mini camp for 2025. Next time those guys will be on the field, will be training camp, getting ready for the 2025 season. We got a lot of good storylines coming in. Not the storylines that the national media want to talk about with a supposedly uncomfortable quarterback situation and things like that. But we're talking about camp battles. We're talking about our young quarterback getting more time on task with his receivers and his pass catchers, right? Um, CK Bijan finally, get to his goal of 2,000 yards. So many storylines there, right? Can Armor Ebiketie have a breakout year? Can Kyle Pitts be the key that I keep talking about, right? It's so many things that when we talk about training camp coming up, the great storylines that we can just talk until the season starts. So I know you guys are excited. I'm excited as well. Stand by for some videos, to come out about these Atlanta Falcons in the next coming weeks, and hopefully we could bear this time together. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.